Well, you stupid piece of shit. It goes live because we're live now. And
Yeah,
then in big blue all over the screen, it says, Hangout on air is here. But did you know it's going away later this year? You just told me, you stupid. Oh, why would
that's
you distract anyone with that?
because Google sucks. I mean, they suck so hard. I don't give a fuck how good their any of their shit is. They suck as a company and human beings. They suck.
Oh, God. And it just makes me so mad. Urgh. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to Wargaming Recon. I am your host, Jonathan J. Reinhardt. Wargaming Recon is the only member of the TSR Podcast Network to discuss historical and New England gaming. On this episode, we are going to be talking about Black Powder 2nd Edition. I want to welcome my buddy and co-host, Mr. Adrian Benson. Adrian, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm really looking forward to our chat now. I do want to start off, though, by giving a big thank you to all the kind people at Warlord, because they sent this copy of the 2nd edition rules to us for us to review. And so they made it possible. So thank you, Warlord, for sending us this review copy so that we could cover it on the show and give it our treatment here.
We can. I would point out that I was one of the first in line for the new 2nd edition set of Black Powder rules when they came out, so I got a signed copy.
Oh, do you?
I do. I didn't show the signature off last night, or when we play Saturday. I should have.
So who signed yours?
So Priestley. So,
okay, because I mean, more than one person wrote it, so I wasn't quite sure.
Well, yeah, but
wait, are you just making fun of Jervis? Are you like, Jervis doesn't count because he's not Rick Priestley? It's okay.
No, I'm not making fun of anybody. That's a horrible thing to say. I don't do that. Well,
no,
but
no, because when I asked, you said Priestley. Well, like, who else would it be? And there's more than one person who wrote it.
Oh, I see.
So it felt like you were being like, oh, why would I bother that other person who I don't even need a name? Because they're beneath me. That's how I didn't seem like something you would say. Well, no, it does seem like something you would say, but I didn't think that's what you were saying.
They'll never see or hear this, but apologies to any of the unnamed who may have taken offense. That's not my intention. That's John's interpretation.
See, you never know, though, because we have mutual acquaintances with them, and
that is true. You don't know
some of the stuff we've done.
Yeah, you don't know for sure, but my assumption is they've got better things to do than listening to you. Maybe not better things to do than listening to me, but
I don't know. Neither one of us has a golden radio voice, though.
No, we don't. No, we don't. But he's doing his own thing now, so you know.
Yeah, he is. He's doing quite well, actually.
Have you listened to it?
I have.
It's really good.
It is. You are surprised.
I was. I've listened to all the back episodes now, so now I'm waiting for the next one to come out. Yeah, no, it's really good.
Yeah, they do a great job with it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Conan and sword and sorcery guy anyway. I love that genre of fiction, so it's right up my alley, kind of. But yeah.
Yeah, they bounce all over. They cover the fiction, they cover the writing, they cover games, they cover a little of everything.
Yeah, they do, and they do it well.
It's a great topic.
Yeah.
Like Black Powder 2nd edition.
Yes, okay.
So what do you think about Black Powder?
Oh, you know what I think about Black Powder, and anybody that listens to the show with any regularity knows what I think about it. Well, we think about it, I should say. It really is a good game. Is it our favorite set of rules? It's probably our favorite set of rules. It's the one we've played the most. And yeah, I love the original Black Powder, and I didn't expect Black Powder 2 to be what I want to say. I didn't expect major change. I expected it to be the same game, and by and large it is. So it's a good thing they did with the 2nd edition. They cleaned a few things up, made a few things more clear. One or two changes, nothing major. There's some small changes here and there, but nothing major. It's still, if you played 1st edition Black Powder, 2nd edition is the same game. You should still buy it because, like I say, there are a few changes that clean some things up that we'll talk about, a couple of them later. But yeah, no, really happy with it. Very happy with it. And of course, the quality of production is what you would expect from Warlord. The writing is, the rules are clear. They're written clearly. The writing is entertaining. There's a lot of little historical nuggets in there. The photography of all their models and everything, and the tables they play on are they're going to make you feel bad about yourself is what it's going to do. You'll flip through Black Powder, and then you're going to want to get down to your basement or your game room or whatever and set all your stuff on fire. But no, it's worth the money, in my opinion. Worth the money.
Well, that was a good episode. It's been nice chatting with you.
We can probably talk about it. What did you think of it? I don't know if you had a chance to read the rules or if we just played the. I know the answer to that, but
no, you don't know the answer to that. You could think you do.
No, I do.
What do you think the answer is?
You didn't read it. You may have read portions of it, but
not cover to cover. But there's no need to read it cover to cover because, as you said, we know the core original first edition book.
That is true.
I was very, very, very worried and apprehensive about this book.
Really?
Yeah. When they announced it, I thought, okay, so they're doing one of two things. And this was like when they first announced it, before I really knew anything about what was going to be done with it. I thought either they're completely revamping the system, doing a drastic overhaul, or they're reverting to the GW method of making it a cash grab. As it got closer and closer, I thought, oh, okay, I don't know. And then little reports started to trickle out like, oh, there's a lot that's the same. And I thought, oh no, they're doing a cash grab. Don't do that. Don't do that. Then it came out. And when you got your copy, you're like, it looks mostly the same. And I went, oh no. And like, that really, really worried me because to me, that would be a huge ethos change for the way Warlord does business. And some people might disagree with me, but although they have a lot of people who used to work at GW, I really feel that they've left what I would refer to as the bad GW habits behind, mostly, such as, oh, we want more money, or my perception anyway, oh, we want more money, let's do a new edition, let's make people buy new models, let's make people buy new codex and so forth. So being concerned that it appeared that they were going to be doing that really worried me, and I thought, oh, I might have to just not play, I might not be able to support Warlord. But then when I got in touch with them and when they sent the book and everything, and I started flipping through, I thought, they're not doing this at all.
No.
They really, and I should have had more faith. I'm going to be the first one to say it. But as we know in this industry, far too often, when something new and shiny comes out, that's basically the original whatever, they just kind of, they don't make the right decisions usually. And by they, I mean like game companies in general. Something goes awry. It doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So I was fearful because, as you said, we've played Black Powder so much. I think it's our most played rule set, and we've done a variety of time periods in it. We spend a lot of time with it, and I don't know if it's my favorite, but I definitely love it. And being concerned that, oh, what are they going to do with something that I care about so deeply worried me, and I didn't need to be worried at all. I agree with you. I think that they really spent a lot of time trying to refine what was there to make it more coherent, because I think when they made the first edition, they really were just like, this is what we do. They kind of codified it, put it out, and thought they were going to be done with it. But then I think a lot of people like us glommed onto it, right?
Yeah.
And then they started taking it, and then people started analyzing and saying, like, this doesn't make sense, or what in this situation? So you have people who had that really analytical or critical view of it. But then you also had people who were like, well, what about this? Can we do this with this? Well, how about that? And they wanted to expand the scope. So I think they were surprised by it. I mean, the game designers and Warlord. So I think that's why we saw other books come out and rule systems spin off. But I think it just got so big, they really kind of had to say, okay, we're taking all of this, like this huge whatever, and really boiling it down to the essence to get a chance to go back to the framework and see how they can make that work better for everyone. And I think they did it. I really do. I don't know, and Warlord won't want to hear this, but I don't know that if you have first edition that you need to buy the second edition book. It's not a must buy for me. I think it's great, and I think if everyone you're playing with is going to go buy second edition, then yeah, you should have it to follow along. But I think you're perfectly fine sticking with first edition.
Yeah, I might agree with that. That might be true. Some of the things that changed in second edition are probably things that people have house ruled anyway, because some of the things that were egregious, and really, now that I say some of the things, I can really only think of one off the top of my head. But they've in the second edition they clarified problem points around that, and it has to do with charges. So there is that. That's the thing with black powder, and I often wonder if the success of black powder kind of took them by surprise. But like you said, and they say this in the book themselves, and it's always been the thing with black powder is it's like, this is just the way, happens to be the way we game. We've got these huge collections of figures from a bazillion different eras in the black powder age, and we want to get them all on the table and play a game with them, and we don't want to get bogged down in minutia. And so that's what black powder is. Talking with people, and I've said this to other people before, people will ask, well, what makes black powder so great? And it's, well, the generality makes it so great, because you can cover almost, 200 years of warfare with black powder. But then black powder's great weakness is also its generality, because when you write rules that kind of cover that large of a period of time, even though for a lot of that period of time tactics were similar, you don't get any particular period flavor. Like you could play, I don't know, pick War of Spanish Succession, and then in the morning, and then play, say, Napoleonics in the afternoon, or American Civil War in the afternoon, let's say. And it feels like the same game. Those are two wars that are 140, 150 years apart. And if you play them in just vanilla black powder, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between one period and the other than the figures that you have on the table. But the thing about black powder is, with all the unit special abilities and whatnot, you can use that to customize the units and give it the what do you want to say, the proper feel for the period that you're playing. But that is kind of a weakness of the rules. I don't consider it to be a major downside if you take it for what it is. But it doesn't have a ton of period flavor the way some rule sets do. Like rules that focus specifically on Napoleonics or 7 Years' War or whatever are going to have, well, they're going to tend to have a lot of minutia in them that gives you the feel of maneuvering armies in those time periods. And black powder doesn't do that. But they make no pretense of doing that either. So that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, when we had David from ESR on last time, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, about how with a set of rules like ESR that's specific to Napoleonics, you're given the freedom, really, as a game designer, to really kind of flesh out all of that, to give you the atmosphere for it, right?
Yeah.
And I know ESR is a completely different type of game from Black Powder Nurtures period, so probably not the best example, but just because we've talked about it, mentioning it. But like you said, with Black Powder, I think in some ways, although I think the game designers were so free because they could cover such a wide time period, at the same time, they were really constricted because, like you said, they couldn't look at, I don't know, War in the Sudan, right? And say, okay, where you want to have a lot of flavor here, make it the game feel like you're actually doing War in the Sudan. Because then when you're doing something really early, it's just not going to match up. So you have those two different styles of games. You have the different periods, a different feel. So they really had to pull back. And I think also there's kind of a little bit of a tug of war going on between people who not just like crunchier rolls compared to those who don't, but I think there's also kind of an age thing going on. Um, Obviously, the game designers for Black Powder are of a certain generation, but I think when it first came out, not second edition, but the first edition, when it first came out, I think you got a lot of pushback from people who were like, "I've been here a really long time since the beginning, and this is how games are supposed to be," compared to people like of my age or younger who were like, "Oh, look how great this is because it lets me do whatever." And I think you kind of get those two different viewpoints going on, so that Black Powder, I think, is more likely to appeal to a younger audience of historical wargamers compared to those who've been around for like 30, 40 years wargaming. Does that hold true for everyone? Of course not. But I do think that when they made it, they really wanted to not only share how they play, but also to make it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. Basically saying, here's the foundation, take it and do what you want with it. And I think a lot of people kind of maybe still struggle with that and think, okay, this is what the rules are. I have to do it exactly as this. And if this isn't what it is, what I want, then I can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's not the intention at all. And I also think it's unfair to judge something for what it's not doing if it's not intending to be doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a problem, not just in, wargaming. That's a thing in any hobby. There's like, anytime something, I don't, and Black Powder wasn't exactly new and radical. There were other rules that tried to do the same thing before. I think Black Powder just did it better than a lot of them. But yeah, you're always going to have that sort of argument thing going on. You get people who, they see the new set of rules come out and they get excited about it because it happens to cover a period that they're interested in, and then they buy it, read it, and try to play it, and they find out that, say you're a Napoleonics guy, keep coming back to Napoleonics because there's probably more rules for that than a lot of the others. But and you cut your teeth on General de Brigade or something like that, and then you sit down to play Black Powder, and you're like, this isn't Napoleonic at all. um, which isn't necessarily true, but it definitely is not General de Brigade. But like I say, they never intended or claimed that it was. So that you do get some of that, and I don't know. It's. I mean, the reason we have more than one set of rules, right, is because different people are looking for different things. Black Powder is a great set of rules to play when you don't want to worry. How do I want to even say it? When you don't want to worry about, I don't know, inches or something like that. It's just push some figures around, roll some dice, and have a good time. And when you create your scenario, and that's another thing about it that a certain segment of people don't like, is that to set up Black Powder is not great for a pickup game. You
No.
have to have an idea of what you want to do going into it. So that means setting something up beforehand. That doesn't have to take a tremendous amount of time or detail or whatever. I mean, you can do that in an hour or so. But the point is, you have to do it. You can't go in and point out a couple of armies and be playing. You can, because there is a rudimentary point system, but it's really not designed for that. And I mean, you and I, we're perfectly fine with that, but a lot of people aren't. But you do have to put some thought into it. Like when you're doing out a game, I mean, there are guidelines in the rules where a particular unit, let's say regular line infantry unit in the American Revolutionary War, right? They'll have a certain set of characteristics if they're British, and then if it's an American Continental Line unit, they'll have the exact same set of characteristics. So they're the exact same unit. So how do you differentiate that? And Black Powder provides a bunch of unit special abilities that you assign to these units that then gives them a little bit of flavor. Like maybe a British unit will be crack, which, or they might be steady. They have morale bonuses, for example, or say a grenadier unit, maybe they're better at hand to hand. But none of that's outlined in the rule book, really. I mean, it is in the scenarios in the back, but none of it is. There's not a list of like, these are the units for this period, and these are what their abilities are. So there's no Revolutionary War army list. There's no Carlist War army list. There's no. Given the length of time that they're covering, they couldn't possibly do that in the rule book. So it's up to the players to do all that figuring and configuring of the units beforehand before you sit down to play. And if you don't enjoy doing that kind of thing, that's kind of a pain. I do enjoy doing that kind of a thing, so it doesn't bother me a bit. But that is a knock on the game that a lot of people have. You could just play it with straight unit values out of the rule book, but that would be really no fun at all. It wouldn't. So you do kind of have to do that. And those special abilities are kind of the only way you get any period flavor out of it. And you're not limited to what they have in the book. They say that, if you feel a unit should have some particular ability that they haven't thought of, make it up and put it in the game. I mean, but it is a bit more work actually to get a game of Black Powder going than it is a lot of other systems. And that is a persistent knock that some people have had on it. And I don't really think it's fair, but there it is.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned points values because I remember when the first edition came out, they didn't really have points. And they ended up putting some in the book just because people were really clamoring for them. So they had
Yeah.
this basic thing, which wasn't so great. And then they did like an errata or an appendix somewhere that you could then like download an FAQ or something that said,
Yeah.
okay, here's like the revised one. But look, I actually, while you were talking, I was listening, of course, but I took a quick peek of the second edition rulebook. I can't find any point values in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they removed them or what it is. One of the things I think that is part good business for them, and I don't mean that in a bad way, although it might sound like a knock at them, but I don't mean it that way. But also, I think it's good for players is you get the rule book, right? Which I keep referring to it as a foundation or framework because I really think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think if you want the flavor, that's when you get the army books. And unlike
Exactly.
GW, it's you don't need the army book. So like I
No,
have
you don't.
Rebellion in my hands as we're talking, which covers, as you might guess, American War of Independence. You don't need this to do a Rev War game.
No.
You could come up with the flavor yourself just from the core book, from your experience, from a movie you saw, whatever. But like this actually has all sorts of amazing stuff in it, maps and lists and all that kind of stuff, and battles and scenarios and stuff that you can do, which is great. Of course, all these books are for first edition, and I don't think that matters actually. Some people will be like,
Doesn't-
"Well, it's not a second edition book, so how can I use?"
It
It
doesn't matter
doesn't
at
change
all.
anything,
Yeah, it
right?
doesn't matter at all.
It's like I hate to go back to ESR again, but it's like ESR, the campaign guides, right?
Yeah.
You can play ESR without a campaign guide. It's okay, or you can use a campaign guide. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It gives you
Yeah.
extra stuff.
Yeah. I mean, those books were released with the first edition. That's supposed to say for the first edition. But yeah, it makes absolutely no difference. They're completely usable with the second edition. So
And they have a bunch of them out. So they got I can't remember the name of it, but they have the Napoleonic one out. They have Glory
there's
Hallelujah for Civ War, right?
yeah, I've got that one. I've got Rebellion. They've got two or there might be three out now for Napoleonics.
Yeah, you're right.
They've,
I think there's at least two for that.
they've got I think they've got one for 7 Years War.
Yep.
They just came out for one. What is it called? It's like brand new for French and Indian War, which is 7 Years War. But what
And
else they
didn't they
got?
do one called
They've got
Zulu? I think just for
yeah, I've got that one too because I really want to. I want to do the Zulus, but painting. So
yeah. Contrast paint. We'll come back to that. Um, well, and like I have more for Hail Caesar, which basically the same game, except they spend a lot more time on
well, it's very
combat because it matters
yeah.
more than with a black powder thing. But for that, I have several books for. I have like a biblical army list book. I have one just on like the Romans and all this kind of stuff because I'm really into Imperial Rome and things like that, and it adds more flavor and gives you more data to play with for that kind of stuff. But they do this for each of their systems. So whether it's Hail Caesar or Black Powder version 2 edition, second edition, or Pike and Shot, which doesn't get a whole lot of talked about lately. They even have some books for that too.
They do, yeah. Well, Pike and Shot covers an unfortunate period. I think it's not as popular as it deserves to be. I know I certainly don't have any armies for that period, but it's just me, maybe.
I mean, English
Um,
Civil War's interesting stuff, and you would think with the whole Game of Thrones thing that people might be more into it, but it's just on this side of the pond, it doesn't seem to be a
well, that's what I
thing.
was going to say. I suspect it's probably more popular in Britain and Europe, but I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but I suspect it would be. But yeah, it's unfortunate it doesn't get a lot of play over here.
What are some of the
Um,
changes from first edition to second edition Black Powder that
um,
you think are really pivotal for people? You're getting into Black Powder, second edition, you get the book, or you're thinking about getting the book, and you have the first edition book. And like, what changed enough that makes second edition something that you need to buy?
well, need to buy. I don't know. There's two significant changes that jumped out at me. And there's probably some smaller ones that I've forgotten or forgot to write down. But the two big ones are first with the Army General. Okay, so the way Black Powder works for people that don't know, you have your army, and your army is divided up into brigades, and each brigade has a brigade commander. And in addition to that, there's an army commander. So to give orders, to get orders, to get units to do anything, they have to be given orders, and they can only be given orders by their brigade commander. In first edition, you could use the army commander to give orders to individual units or brigades, and that's no longer the case in second edition.
He was like a backup, right?
He basically served as a backup, yeah. because one of the things that affects issuing orders to your units is, for example, how far they are from the commander. So what you could do with the army commander having the ability to give orders would be to like split a brigade into two widely separated forces, have your brigade commander lead one, and then you have your army commander just move closer to the separated force, and then he could sort of direct them.
Done that. Didn't make any sense, but I've done it.
But you can't do that now. The army commander can't take direct control of brigades or individual units. But what he can do is you can move him into contact. He can join with one of your brigade commanders. And then if your brigade commander fails on a command roll, including if he rolls a blunder, you can just re-roll it if the army commander is present. So that's actually a better way, to my mind, to have the army commander influence things.
I agree, but there's a downside there, isn't there?
I don't think so. What?
Well, it's the same downside when you have a commander attached to a unit, and if the unit goes and it's gone off the table, the commander's gone. I'm not saying it's a major downside, but like,
it's not a downside at all, because you don't attach the commanders to a unit. You attach the army commander to the brigade commander.
Yeah. But if the brigade commander ends up being attached to the unit, it's very unlikely, but it is a negative. Not a big. What? No, it's not a major negative, but it's worth pointing out because people might not be aware of it.
Well, we'll be aware of it if it becomes an issue, but your commander's not going to haphazardly be attached to a unit.
I would hope not.
I mean, I suppose he could be if he got displaced by enemy units moving through it. Whatever, we're getting too into the weeds on the rules. Anyway,
no, it does. It's just I wanted to point it out as a potential negative. It's because I love what they're doing with it. It's just I don't want people to be like, well, this is the best thing ever. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I don't need to be careful about doing it at any point in time, which is not the case. Do it because it's smart and that's what you should do and it's what the rules say. It makes more sense. But be mindful when you do it.
I don't think anybody's having that reaction to that particular rule, but okay. I suppose it is a potential downside.
But that's why they come and listen to our show, because we give them a fuller picture.
Okay. Whatever you say, John.
It's true.
So let's see.
That's Army Commander, right?
Yeah, that was one big change. The other change had to do around charges. Okay, so I haven't read the first edition rules in quite some time, but the rules around when units charge each other were a little bit loose. And one of the things that, and this is another complaint some people have about the game, and I got to admit this, I don't love about it myself, but the units can move a long way in a turn. If you give a unit a charge or a move order and you get lucky on your order dice, you can potentially issue a unit 3 move orders. So if you're playing on a 6-foot by 4-foot table with 28mm miniatures and you're not using a reduced distance scale, 1 move for an infantry unit is 12 inches. That means 3 moves is 3 feet. That means you are completely across the table and behind the enemy's lines in 1 move. That stayed the same. They didn't change that. But one thing that you could do in the old system, because it wasn't specified otherwise, was if you were in front of an enemy unit, if you had 2 lines of troops facing each other, and you ordered a unit to, Unit A to charge Unit B, and you roll your order dice, and you get 3 orders, so that's 3 moves. You could, if you were a bit weaselly about it, move around to the flank of that unit or even behind them to execute your charge. Now, if you were playing in the spirit of the game and executing the order in the manner in which it was intended, which is, Unit A charge Unit B, then you would go by the most direct route available, which is, you would charge front to front, which only makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't say necessarily that you had to do that. And because there are certain population of gamers that like to weasel through holes in rules like that, you've got the situation where a unit would start in front and end up charging his enemy on the flank. Well, now you can't do that anymore because they've decided to spell it out specifically in the rules. You charge, if you start in front of a unit, you have to contact the unit to the front. If you start on the flank, you contact the flank. You start in the rear, you contact the rear. It's that simple. It's 2 sentences, and it resolves a lot of potential hate and discontent. So those were the 2 significant rules change. And as far as the charges go, it's not really a rules change because, like I say, part of the thing with black powder is, you issue your orders to your brigade, and then, or the regiment, whatever, and then you have to carry out that order in the most direct fashion possible and in keeping with the spirit of the order in the game. Spirit of the game, that's the problem, because that means different things to different people. So for some people, spirit of the game is, okay, I got my unit in front of this guy and I'm going to charge him, and that means I'm going to run straight into his face. And somebody else is like, well, I have a much bigger melee advantage if I go to the side and charge him in the flank, and the rules don't say I can't do that, even though, clearly I shouldn't do that, but I'll do it anyway. So anyway, they closed that loophole, so to speak.
It's a great clarification. They did what an old professor of mine called "right tight."
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that's the kind of a thing where it's like, obviously they've been playing these rules forever, and I'm sure this came up at some point, and somebody tried to do it, and everybody else was like, no. But now they've written it down. So,
well, it's kind of like this has nothing to do with gaming necessarily, but it's kind of like, for those of you who don't know, LL Bean in its original return policy, which was very generous. Basically, like, if you're not satisfied with the item, you can return it. And some people took that to mean, well, you keep it until it's worn out, even if it's 40 years later, and then you return it.
yeah.
And it became a problem when they lost money despite record sales, and they had to say, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
Let's rethink this and say, okay, reasonable is like 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you return. Otherwise, you're done.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember when they changed that policy, it was like, they're the worst company in the world, corporate sellouts. Hippies aren't going to wear their shoes anymore. Well, of course, they're not the worst company in the world. They're still a good company, but they had to make a business choice there: keep losing money or do something about it. So
yeah, they learned the hard way. Kind of like this. Well, it's not exactly clear. So, but no one's going to do that. They're not going to go all the way around to charging the rear. Of course, someone is. One person's going to be like, "Hey, it doesn't say I can't."
Yeah.
So I'll get really close to them so I see them. But they're not going to do anything because I'm far enough away where they can't get me and I can't get them. And I'll just walk around, be like, "Hi guys, we'll see you in 5 minutes."
Yeah, and and I'm sure they were all like, when they were, it probably didn't even come up when they were writing the first edition, but it's like, and they had it covered with the most direct way possible to fulfill the order and the spirit of the game, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what they neglected to take into consideration was the average gamer.
Yeah, you get a rules lawyer who says, "Well, it doesn't say exactly that you can, so I'm going to argue that you can, and therefore." And no, I agree with you. I think that was a great change that they did. I love that charges work out a little bit better. They make more sense. I think they also clarified supporting units a little bit more, exactly the placement of them and how they can support when you're in close combat. Because
They did.
I think that was kind of tricky with first edition. I
Yeah.
think they did the best that they could, but it was still a confusing thing for a lot of people. How many supports can you have? What's the max number? Where can they be? What is it per arc? And so, like, they really worked on it here. A small thing. So of course we'll spend like 40 minutes talking about it. But a small thing that they did that I really, really like, and it came up when we played it the other day, was that they made the ability to do an enfilade easier.
Yeah, it is a little bit easier. I mean, you still got to be on the unit's flank, and the center of the unit still has to be more or less lined up with the exact flank of the unit you're shooting at. But it doesn't have to be exactly a 90-degree perpendicular anymore. It's like if you're in the flank and if the line of fire traces most of the way through the unit, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me.
It's looser. It's, gives you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it's still not easy to get a flank shot on somebody, but it's nowhere near as hard as it was before. And some people will like that, some people won't. People that don't can always go back to the old way of doing things. There's nothing wrong with that. I like it myself, but
Well, I think it adheres to the fact that this is a gentlemanly game, right? So I think before it was pedantically difficult to ever enfilade because you seriously had to be to the millimeter lined up just right. And if you weren't, and if you were playing against someone who wasn't going to be forgiven,
yeah,
it didn't count. And now they're like, generally, if you're anywhere near there, it's good enough, and that's fine.
yeah,
And again, like you said, it will drive some people crazy. And when it first happened, I was like, wait a sec, that's not how it goes. Like, what are you talking about?
yeah,
And no, but like it is now. And actually, it makes more sense because if you're on the battlefield, right, you're not going to be like, you're like a half a foot off. So like we can't really be as devastating right now as we could be. So we're not gonna do it. Like that doesn't
yeah,
happen. You take your shots and you hope for the best. And so the
yeah,
same thing when you play in the game, you get there and you're like, okay, we think we can do it and see what happens. You're not gonna be like, well,
yeah,
no, never mind. It's not gonna be that great. I'll do something else instead. That's just stupid. So I
yeah,
like that they made it more accessible. And I think that's what they
yeah.
were trying to do with the second edition, right? Not only streamline, but maybe kind of clarify and again make it even more accessible for people so that you can then just pick up the rules, go and do it, have a good time, and not spend 4 hours wondering exactly what do I do in this situation. Just play the game.
Exactly, and that's their whole thing is just play the game.
Yeah.
And Black Powder's a great set of rules to do that with. And yeah, like I say, there aren't any radical changes in the rules, and most of what you would call changes are really just clarifications, like the charge thing. Um, the enfilade fire and the commander; those are actual changes. Um, but mostly it's just clarification and tightening up of the rule system because they do present it as it's a game to be played among friends. Um, but still, fights are going to break out. Let's face it.
Well, yeah, I mean, people have the difference of opinions, and it's clear on how to handle it,
Yeah,
and that it's not clear at all. Basically, it just says pick a method that works for you and come to a decision that's
yeah,
mutually agreeable to everyone.
yeah,
And whatever is that works for you, great, do it.
yeah. That's the thing. Let's put it this way: Black Powder would be a terrible set of rules for a tournament because they're just not tight enough for that.
And yet some people have tried organized play with it, and not something I would do, but some
That
people have had some success with it,
I
and I
can't
don't
even
know.
imagine that just due to lack of an army list, a fair way to build an army.
Yeah, the
But if
points list.
if they're doing it and making it work, then good for them. But yeah, it sure wouldn't be my first choice. But
Mm-mm, nor mine.
yeah,
But at the same point, some people would also probably shy away from doing it at a convention, and we've run games with it
I
and done
think
pretty well at cons.
it is a great set of rules to run at a convention,
I think so.
especially if you're dealing like we've run it predominantly at TotalCon, where the population is not really historical gamers, and Black Powder is a great set of rules to run at a con like that, where you have people who maybe don't know anything about gaming the particular period that you're running the game in, um, but they've got some gaming experience, and the mechanics of Black Powder are very easy to pick up. And usually, our experience has been by turn two or so, the players can more or less run the game themselves. So I think Black Powder is a great set of rules for a convention game, just for that. Uh, I mean, it kind of depends on your audience. There's some people who won't necessarily gravitate toward a black. I always will because I love the rules. But um, yeah, no, I think it's a great set of rules to run at a con, particularly in a situation like that where our goal was to get people who don't play historical miniature games to play a historical miniature game. And I don't want to, you don't want to beat them down with a set of rules like General de Brigade or Shaco, which are great, but not for a newbie. So
Yeah, if you hand me like 40 pages worth of charts I'd have to track and I'm at a con, I'm probably gonna get up and walk away.
yeah, I mean, not everybody's like that. And like I say, it depends. You got to know your audience. But at Total Con, although they're starting to have more historical stuff there, but even so, at a con like that, that's predominantly role playing and board games, yeah, a game like that really wouldn't fly. I don't think. I don't
Well,
think anybody would enjoy it, but
it, I mean, that specific convention I think is kind of funny in that it's not a historical con and it doesn't pretend to be, but they actually have a fair number of historical gamers who go, and
yeah,
they go basically because it's their chance to play non-historical games.
yeah,
But if they see historical stuff on like the event listing, they'll sign up for it. And I mean, the first time I played Black Powder with you was at Huzzah, which is a very much historical game where they run the gamut of types, right?
yeah.
And it did really well, and they ran it several years, I think,
They
many
did.
different games and stuff.
Yeah, Rich Clayton. It was still fairly new when they were running it there, though, is the thing.
True.
Um, but yeah, no, there's a number of. We've always had good attendance at TotalCon when we've run the game there. Any historical game, actually. What did we run there last?
We tend to
Last,
sell out, actually.
yeah, Bold Action. That was the last thing we ran. Another Warlord product. That was the last thing we ran there. But yeah, that was a sellout too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I do like doing that kind of thing. I would actually be a little bit hesitant in some cases to run a game at a hardcore historical convention. Um,
Well,
yeah,
you're not going to see me running to Historical and saying, let's run Black Powder, because that's not
or,
going to
or
happen.
yeah, or anything else. The audience is there would, and rightly so, probably be occasionally a little bit harsher critic. But I don't know. I don't want to say too much. I'm not going to say too much.
I'd
I'm
be
going to
into
say
running it at Huzzah
I'm going to say that we do plan to run something at Huzzah this. Well, it'll be next year, but
2020.
yeah. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
I
Got
have
a lot.
ideas.
I do too. I got an excellent idea. Got a lot going on this year, though.
Do you want to share with the public? They will hold you
Yeah,
accountable.
yeah. I can share it with the public. Anybody that's on the Wargaming Recon podcast fan page on Facebook, or just the main Wargaming Recon page on Facebook, will have seen it. But I've been painting a bunch of 28 millimeter American Revolutionary War miniatures. What I want to do is I want to run sharp practice at Huzzah next year. We'll see how it works out, but I want to run a Rev War sharp practice game.
That's a really good set of rules.
It is. We played this year at Huzzah, and it was. I mean, I've had the rules for a while. We haven't played them yet, but I watched all the Lardy's videos. They've got quite a few up. Actually, if you go to what do they call themselves now? It used to be Beasts of War.
Oh, on tabletop.
On tabletop, they got a bunch of live plays with Richard Clark from Two Fat Lardies, who wrote the rules. But anyway, it's a great game. It's a game that I don't want to say it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It gives you a good feel for for the period, for small scale actions and whatever period you're covering. But it's more of a story and event driven game than it is a tactical kind of a war game. You don't want to go into it with the attitude that you might go into it with, say, a serious game that you might be playing. But anyway, yeah, we played Jesus, some tongue's getting away from me. We played sharp practice at Huzzah this year, and it was great fun. It was every bit as good of a game as I expected it to be. So yeah, I want to run that next year.
Yeah, I was pretty much head over heels about it, and that
Yeah,
surprised
you
me.
were. Yeah, it surprised me too, to be honest. I was like, yeah, he'll probably think it's okay, but yeah, no, you.
I loved it. I
Yeah,
really did. I was like, I can't wait for us to play more and
yeah,
play some of the other stuff that the Lardies put out.
yeah,
Good
yeah. And
stuff.
well, Chain of Command. I love
That's
Chain
a
of
good one. Yeah.
Command. What else? Oh, I bought the. We're getting off track. I bought What a Tanker at Huzzah. We haven't played it yet, but all we need is time to do it, because all you need are tanks, and we have those. So
Add it to the list, and
yeah,
I'd like to try I Ain't Been Shot, Mom.
we could play that at any time. I'll tell you, not a big fan of I Ain't Been Shot, Mum.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not great, but if you want to play it, we'll get it on the table.
Yeah, let's play, and then we talk about it on another episode.
Yeah, John and I have played it a couple of times, and it's it's okay. It's not bad, but yeah, it's like whatever. It's all right. So other company level World War II games I'd rather play.
Okay. Are there any other things that you'd like to point out that you like or really dislike about the second edition?
Not really. I just want to reemphasize that I don't think anybody's thinking this anymore. They've made major changes to it, but they haven't. It's still the same game essentially, and it's still a great game, in my opinion. So
If people are interested in getting black powder, Warlord sells it for $48 American or whatever that comes to in your local currency. And one of the neat things is if you buy it from Warlord directly, you can actually, when you get it, I think you get free shipping on it. And it comes with a limited special edition Master and Commander figure. He's pretty cool looking, 28 mil. You could assemble and paint him up and have a good time with that. So be sure to check that out and just head on over to Warlord Games for all the other stuff that they do. And really, I want to thank Warlord again for sending us this for review. And I know you picked up a copy, Adrian, but it was nice that they sent this to us.
yeah,
And I love it. It's a great book. It's gorgeous. Like you said, the production value I think is amazing. For me, packaging matters a lot.
it does to me too. It shouldn't, but it, yeah, I prefer a nice, well done hardbound book. I know it's going to cost more.
I'll pay it. I mean, we talked about it last time. I'll pay
Yeah,
for the hardcover. I really will.
yeah,
It's great. The illustrations are good. The photographs are amazing, of course. It fits stylistically with the first edition, which is really cool. They
yeah,
have the nice black, the nice artwork. Everything just really matches. Diagrams are easy to use and it makes sense. And the rules are laid out appropriately. The only thing that kind of made me a little bit sad was there's not a series of appendices in the back like in the first one. Uh,
yeah,
which I felt like the first edition it had those. It was really nice because they talked more about playing in different scales, so you could do different sizes. They talked about points. They talked about a variety of things. There was like several appendices, and I was hoping they were going to do something like that in here, and they didn't. And as far as I can tell, I wasn't able to find that kind of stuff
yeah,
very in a lot of depth elsewhere in the book. There's little snippets here and there, so that was just
yeah.
the one thing that made me a little sad, but
There
it's
is.
minor.
It is, and a lot of the stuff that was in those appendices is now. I mean, people have been playing back Black Powder for a long time, and a lot of one of the things that people have had a bit of an issue with, and rightly so. And this is the one thing I'll knock the game on, and it's well, are the movement distances, right? So I mentioned that briefly before. If you get lucky on your order roll, you can be completely across the standard 6x4 foot table that most of us are playing on in one move. It's ridiculous. But the thing is, the Warlord guys, they're not playing on a 6x4 foot table. They're
Mm-mm.
playing on 8x6, 12x6, huge, massive tables. And that's just, they have that available to them. So that's what they do. And that's what the rules and the movement distances and the shooting distances are scaled for. It's up to you to make that work on a 6x4 foot table. And the way you do, there's two ways you can do it. The easiest way is just to scale the distances down, and you'll find out on the internet. I don't know if there are actually any available for second edition at the moment, but they're easy enough to do. It's just have all the distances,
Mhm.
scale everything proportionally, or do it by 2/3. So it used to be available on their website. I don't know if they're still there. Maybe they were in the forum. I don't remember exactly, but they had a 1/2 and a 2/3 distance scale
Yeah,
uh,
those were nice.
version of the quick reference card. So you can do things like that that will then give you more what I would say are sensible movement distances.
Play
But
in
yeah,
millimeters, especially if you're doing a smaller scale.
yeah, that would be the other thing. We played it in 10 millimeters, but if you were to play it in 15 or 28 millimeter scale, then just use the distances that they give you in the book, and just instead of inches, do centimeters. So instead of moving 12 inches, you move 12 centimeters. That won't work. It won't look or work as good with the larger scale figures, but certainly with 15s or 10s, that works fine.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the only thing. Yeah, they didn't when they wrote the rules with those movements. They didn't consider the common man. Let's put it that way.
You
the,
mean
the
not everyone
common
has a 10-foot square table that they can play games on?
the common man is playing at his friendly local game store, sandwiched in between 40K and Magic the Gathering players, and he's lucky if he can get a 6x4 foot table.
No,
That is
you're right.
that is the one what I would consider legitimate knock on the rule set are those the movement distances and the scaling of that. But that's easy enough to fix, like we said. So yeah, it's a knock on the rules, but I mean, just fix it. It's not hard.
It doesn't bother me at all because my thinking. Okay, yeah, you go that far, big deal. You get in combat quicker. You're doing more stuff. It's bloody,
Well, and that's
and then the game's over, and then you play another one. Of course, also I'm looking over to my side, and it's covered with all sorts of projects right now. But I'm looking at my 4 by 6 foot table that I can play games on. So
yeah.
I know
I
I'm in
mean,
a different situation.
yeah, that I mean, it's true, and that's part of the reason the movement distances. And I think they said that somewhere.
Yeah,
That's
I think
part
they
of the
did.
reason that the movement distances are. They want to get stuff moving. They want you to get into combat and be shooting at each other quickly. But the problem with that is it doesn't really allow for any maneuver on the
No.
table. And that more so than just eating up table space. That's my real problem with it is when you're moving that far that fast. It's like, yeah, there's no army maneuvering or positional struggles going on that way. It's just like, oh, I'm behind you now.
Yeah, the journey doesn't matter. It's only the destination.
Yeah, so yeah, I would if you're not playing on a 12-foot by 6-foot table, I would recommend scaling the distances down in Black Powder. But other than that, I do consider it to be an outstanding set of rules. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I think we'll be playing more second edition as
Yeah,
we move forward. And I got to say, when I look at second and first edition, I have no desire to play by first edition rules.
no, no,
I think
I'm
second
not going to
edition.
get rid of
No, I'm gonna keep it because it's well worn and part of my history. But at the same point, I'm not gonna be like, hey, let's go play first edition. You know, some people just really love, I don't know, like second edition D&D, or there's a certain edition like 40K or whatever that they have to play and they won't play anything
Oh
else.
yeah, yeah,
Like I'm like, no, second edition is fine with me. I
yeah,
love it. It's great. And if a third edition came out that was even better, I'd be like, cool, we'll play third edition. I'm not gonna
yeah,
be like, we only got to do original. That's not gonna be the case.
yeah. No,
No, it's good stuff.
yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think we beat Black Powder to death.
You 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great set of rules. We love it, and you should too. Give it a try.
Please do. And what I'd actually like to know, we don't always do this, but I'd like if any of you who have been playing second edition, especially if you played first edition, but even if you haven't, if you just kind of tackle second edition, I'd like to know what you've kind of noticed about it that you really like or dislike. And let us know, and maybe we'll share some of that on a future episode of the show.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that'd be really neat to hear what resonated with members of our audience.
yeah.
Cool. Um, Black powder's not the only thing we've been doing though. What else have you been tackling?
So I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but Citadel and GW have released a new line of paints. Have you heard about these?
There's new paints out?
Yeah, yeah. What do they call them? Contrast paints, I think. And apparently, they're the answer to all of your woes. If you're a horrible painter, you're going to be a master painter now.
Me.
Oh my God. So anyway, yeah, we went to Battleground and we each picked up an armload of these paints to try them out. I don't know if you've had a chance to try yours yet. I have. I wanted to get all the colors that I needed to paint my red coats because I wanted to try it on those guys, the guys I'm doing for sharp practice, and British Grenadier and so on and so forth. Naturally, to paint red coats, you need white and you need red, and they did not have white and they did not have red. So I picked up a bunch of alternative colors and busted out a box of Warlord Prussian Landwehr for Napoleonics, 1812 Landwehr, and I tested on a couple of them, and I also bought a can of very, 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 very expensive Gray Seer primer.
$20 per can.
Absolutely inexcusable. It's paint. But I bought a can because that's what they recommended, and I wanted to see if it made a difference. And I primed up one of the Landwehr, and I painted them with the Ultramarines blue for the Landwehr. If you're not familiar with them, are basically a long knee-length blue coat and cap and pants of whatever color the guy happened to have. Could be white, could be gray, could be brown, could be black, whatever. They didn't get issued that. They got issued a coat, a hat, and a musket. Anyway, I painted the coat with the Ultramarines blue, and it looked okay. I didn't get as much shading as I sort of expected. I wonder if that's because I used their method, one thick coat. and it covered well. There is some shading and highlighting. It wasn't what I was expecting, but like I say, I may have put it on a little bit too thick. I'll try with another guy and see. It's not revolutionary or a miracle. You could probably do the same thing with a well-concocted wash, a heavily pigmented wash, which, except for the medium, that whatever the medium is that they use, that's what these are. But the beauty of it is, if you don't mind spending a little bit of extra money for a pot of paint, you don't have to come up with that formula for the wash. So, and like I say, the blue worked pretty good. I used snakebite leather for his boots and his backpack. And I have to say, I was extremely happy with the snakebite leather. It gives a really, really good distressed leather kind of look, like, you know, boots and a backpack that have been around the block a couple of times. It looks really good. The flesh tone that I use, I actually picked a flesh tone. I forget what it's called because GW doesn't use real names for their paints. What the hell is it? Anyway, some kind of a flesh color that was actually a little bit too dark for a normal human Prussian.
That is so insulting to people.
But
normal?
Yeah, a normal human Prussian as opposed to a freaking orc or a dog-faced boy or whatever is in that game.
No, I agree with you. It's not so great for a Caucasian, but it's fantastic for an indigenous person.
Oh, actually, yeah, I was thinking about that as I was looking at it. I was like, this will make, because I have a bunch of, here we go, getting off topic again.
Native Americans, maybe?
No, well, yes, but I got a bunch of pirates that I have to paint.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they're not wearing a lot of clothes, so this could actually be pretty handy for that. But anyway, the flesh color does a really good job. Actually, I thought it did a good job of highlights and shadows in the face. Again, with just one coat of paint. So I painted, what would I say, the coat, the pants, the leather pieces, some of the, like his cartridge box and things are black leather. They were black leather, so I used the black for that, and they work really well. You get shading, you get highlight. Basically, I would say these paints, for the most part, work as advertised, from what I could tell from my small sample. And I certainly didn't test them all. I've seen videos where people are saying that some of them don't cover well, and the one thick coat doesn't necessarily work all the time. But the results that I got, I would consider acceptable. Like this guy, if I'd had all the colors that I needed to finish him off, I would have been okay putting that guy on the table. And it took me maybe 10 minutes to paint him.
I think with these paints, and I got to start off by saying I've not used them yet, and I'll go into that reason why in a moment. But I think these paints, a lot of them really depend on the subject matter that you're painting.
Absolutely.
Its size, the sculpting, and the color paint that you pick. So some paints, I've spent a lot of time, more than anyone probably should, watching videos of people painting with them.
Yeah.
And analysis of them and pictures of them and comparing them and literally holding up pictures next to each other saying, okay, this person did it this way and this person did that way. Which way looks better? And did they do the same methods and what did they do? I really think that some paints, they cover too much. It's too dark. There's that red flesh tearers red, I think they call it. It's really dark red. It's too dark. It covers too much. There's another blue that, again, it's just, you don't get any nice shadowing. You don't get any lightness for stuff for the surface. I don't know what they did with these paints, but it didn't work well. So I think you have to be really mindful about what paint you're getting and what you're going to paint. So I think there are some colors in the range that are, I'm going to call essential, that you should just kind of have in your paint kit so you can promote and use. But there is some that just not going to make any sense unless you have something specific you're going to do, and others that just are awful. So don't use. But I also think with the models that you do, you need a lot of recessed areas. You need a lot of extra detail put in. So if you're doing something that has a lot of flat surfaces, you can put it on it, but you're going to need a thinner coat on that. So even though you're putting it on thickly, you're not painting them on with brush strokes. And I'm not saying you did this, but some people are painting them that way. They're like, okay, I do a stroke, I put some on, I get more, I do another stroke, and I put. That's not what you do. You get a whole a blob on, and you just kind of shove it around a little bit here and
Yeah,
there. And if there's too much, you just take your dry paintbrush and put it in and sap
and
some of it out, and you kind of do it that way to even out. I, for me, the main problem is that for what I want to use them for, which is I want to tackle my Breach Storm figures, the Zrenthrar Prides, which are the feline army, the close
yeah,
combat specialists. They didn't have the blue I wanted. I wanted a light color blue. I forget the name of it because again, GW uses GW names. Um, but it's a light color blue. So I wanted that. And I was like, if I get that, then I can basically do all of the figs and get them done, and we'll see how it is. And they didn't have it. And I was like, okay. So I picked up fur color, gore, grunta flesh, or something like that, I think. Which
yeah, yeah. That's
I
what
think that'll
works.
be great on the fur
Yeah,
because like the heads are exposed and some of that kind of stuff. And I picked up a gray metallic one, which I say metallic, but being contrast paint, it's not a metallic paint. I got to
it's
stress that.
yeah. I think you're going to be going back to your Vallejos and stuff for real metallics or whatever it is you use for metallics. They do have a bunch of concoctions on the Games Workshop website where you can mix and match these contrast paints with some of the regular paint lines. That's not worth it to me. Just a bottle of gold or whatever from Vallejo.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I do. I'm curious how the gray is going to look on some of the weapons. I want to check it and see how it goes because normally what I do when I use metallics is kind of similar to what I think contrast is trying to do. So I paint the metallic on. I usually do some sort of wash on it to dull it down a little bit so it's not as shiny and sparkly because I've never met a warrior who's like, "Look, I have this brand new shiny sword that I used in 40 battles and it looks brand new." Because that's not a thing, right? So,
Right.
like, it should look a little tarnished. I mean, they're gonna keep good care of it, so it's not all rusty or whatever, but, like, it should look like it's been battle worn. So, I use a little, like, black ink wash usually on it, and then I seal the stuff up. And maybe do a quick highlight of something with a dry brush along that edge or whatever to kinda bring that out. And so I think these contrast paints, I forget what they call it, it's some GW named Gray is what it is. I think that'll be okay on the weaponry.
Yeah.
I can see that working okay. I am worried it might be a little too bright in my case because I picked up the white primer, and so I got the white primer as a spray. I got it as a pot because one of the things that's really important with the contrast paints, from what I've seen, and we'll test it myself because if anyone's gonna have this issue, it'll be me. Is that if you get paint where you don't want it, you need to re-prime that area with a primed color because
Oh,
otherwise you get this weird thing going on where like reds and blues mix, go back to primary school for what the colors look like. So you really
yeah.
have to tidy them up. And I have a tendency to kind of get paint where I don't need paint to be.
Yeah, that will absolutely happen. It happened to me, and it is you got to be careful when you're applying the paint. You can't just slap it on there because it is very wet. Obviously, I mean it's like painting with water, so it is on occasion going to go someplace you don't want to. And you're absolutely right. If that happens, you have to get some of the primer in the bottle and cover that up. You cannot paint over that with another contrast paint because well, actually you can, and you might get an effect that you like. But if it happened to me on the cuff of one of the guys I did, I got a little bit of blue on there and then I use the GW name yellow to paint the uniform facings, the collars and the cuffs yellow. And of course, it turned out to be a greenish color where I had slopped that paint. Um, so it's actually, if you experiment with them a little bit, you could probably come up with some kind of neat effects that you would like. But that was just a flat out mistake, and I was too lazy to go back and cover it up with the primer. And I was like, that'll be fine. And it is not fine. You do have to fix mistakes like that before you move on.
You do, and you also have to wait fully for each color to be dry before you do another color or do
Yeah,
another coat because otherwise you get weird mixing going on.
yeah, they'll mix. Yep.
And sometimes you don't have to worry about that with standard paints, is from what I've seen. But once I can get that light blue, I'm good to go.
Uh,
But it cost me $40 for the spray, for the pot of the primer, and the two contrast paints,
yeah,
and that was a lot. So I hope it works out well. But if it does, I'll also pick up a red. I think they call it Blood Angels Red. I think.
yeah. That's what I wanted for the red coats, and yeah, That's out. I actually looked online for it. It's out of stock online.
Yeah, a
So
lot of them are out of stock. I saw.
good job good job to GW for anticipating demand and being prepared to meet it. Well done.
Well, for once, I'm not going to blame them. I actually think that they did such a great job marketing it, that people who they didn't even anticipate would want to try it. People who were like, "Bleep GW, we hate you." We're like, "We're gonna try these paints." So I really think that they just did such a great job promoting it
They
and
did do a good
hyping
job
it.
marketing. Yeah, and I will say, like I said, I think they work as advertised. I think they may have over marketed it. I think there's going to be a lot of people buying them who are thinking that they're going to get super amazing, fantastic results, and it's not going to require any effort. And neither of those things are true. You're going to get good results, but it does require some effort. And it's not a cure all. I'll say that if you're like me, if you're at best an average painter, somebody who tends to just base coat and dip kind of a thing, these are definitely worth you taking a look at because they absolutely give you better results than just putting on a base coat and then slapping a wash of Agthrax or any of the Armor Painter washes over top of your model. They're much better than that. But you're not going to be a master painter. But depending upon what your tabletop standards are, like I say, that Prussian Landwehr figure that I painted, except for the his equipment straps and things, which I had to paint in white with Vallejo because they didn't have the white or the red. Yeah, I painted that guy in about 10 minutes. And for getting all of that done, the main parts of the uniform, the boots, his equipment, his bedroll, all that stuff, getting all that done in 10, that's pretty good. And like I say, different people have different standards for what they'll put on the table. For me, that was perfectly fine. I would field an army of those guys and not feel bad about it one bit. So I think the paints work, but I think you need to temper your expectations with reality. And keep in mind that a lot of the people doing the videos are expert painters. And those guys would get those exact same results if they were using freaking shoe polish and a horse brush. So don't look at what they're doing and compare it to what you're going to get when you use these paints and be disappointed.
Yeah, look
But
what we're doing.
yeah, you can see the pictures of the Prussian that I did and they're not great pictures.
We should do a
But
video or two, and I'd actually like to come back to this again on a future episode to track some progress with it.
yeah, I actually ordered the paints that I'm going to paint this whole Prussian battalion with these paints and see how it goes, trying different primers and stuff. That was the other thing I wanted to mention. I did try a different primer other than the very, 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 very expensive authorized primer. I used Krylon Deep Gray, and the results were terrible, utterly terrible. Other people who have posted on our Facebook pages have gotten very good results with normal person primers like Rust-Oleum and whatnot. But the key is the primer that you use, it has to go on very smooth. Not all primers do, but it has to go on very smooth and it has to be light. The deep gray that I used was way too dark. But if you used a white or a very, very light gray, I think you would get results pretty comparable to the authorized primer, which is very, 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 very expensive. So I want to experiment with a couple of different kinds of primer and see what kind of results I can get. But aside from the cost, yeah, the contrast paints not bad. They work okay. I'm reasonably happy with them. If I don't do anything else, I am absolutely going to keep using the snakebite leather to do my leather stuff with because I'm really happy with the way that turns out. So.
I kind of want to echo a little bit of what you said in that I think they work exactly as advertised by GW.
Yeah.
I think other people who've been promoting it and talking about it have been kind of making it to be the magical fix to all of our issues and problems in life. And I think GW has been pretty clear actually about saying these are for people who place more emphasis on gaming than painting, who
Yeah.
want to get a product looking tabletop ready and to do it in an amount of time that's not gonna uh, be such a huge barrier. And from what I've seen, from what I've researched, and from what you're saying, it sounds like they're doing that exactly.
Yeah.
And I, again, maybe in my experience, when I actually get to use these, once I get my blue, whenever that is, maybe that will change my opinion. But I gotta give GW a round of applause because I'm shocked. But I think they've done something good here.
Yeah, I expected very little from them. I spent a lot of money to try them, and I'm not going to say how much because there's just the tiniest chance that my wife will see this episode. Um, but there's
No,
yeah,
she can do the math.
it was $100, a little over $100
I
with
can
all.
believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what was I going to say? Yeah, but I don't regret it because they work okay. They're I will, like I said, I wasn't thrilled with the shading on the coat, but I think that was my technique. I'll keep using them for certain things. There are some figures, like you said, that they're not going to be suitable for. After actually using them on that Prussian figure, I'm thinking to the red coats that I have. They have a tremendous amount of detail in like belts and lace and everything, and there aren't a lot of large areas where you can paint the color on. I don't know how they're going to work on those. I really want to get the red and white so I can try, but I'm not sure how good they're going to work on those guys. We'll see.
Yeah, you'll find out.
Um, so there may be certain kinds of models where they're not totally appropriate. I mean, the problem with that is, you go to YouTube and you'll see guys painting all kinds of textured whatever those GW creatures are in that 40K game, and they look great. But the problem is they're all one color,
Yep.
and like all these different accoutrements on these Revwar, they're all different colors. So that's why it could potentially be a problem. But we'll see. Um, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a decent product. I won't go so far as to say it's worth the money because they are expensive. But they will let you get a tabletop. They will let you get a army tabletop ready pretty quickly. If I can paint 15 millimeter or 28 millimeter figures to a standard that I don't mind putting on the table, and my standards are low, people, but still that I wouldn't mind putting on the table in 10 or 15 minutes, which I was able to do with these. That's a product I'm on board with. So I'll go, like I say, because the cost will go short of saying you should go out and buy it. But if you're like me and your painting method is base coat and dip, you might want to give them a look and see how they work.
And for you, that's a ringing endorsement when it comes to GW.
It really is. I mean, credit where it's due. I think they did some. I think this is a decent product from them. Like I say, it's expensive, but it's GW. But yeah, give it a try.
Cool. So, have you been up to anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I've been making steady progress on the Napoleonic figures for Essence Resultat. I've got, what did I do? I just finished 4 Austrian battalions, so that box is almost done. Then I'm going to have to order some others. I've been anxiously checking my order status on Bacchus because I ordered the Confederates we need for Altar of Freedom. They haven't shipped yet, but they probably will this week, I would imagine. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to. I've been doing a lot of painting and a lot of rules reading.
That's great. You've been very productive.
I've been busy.
Okay, we'll go with that then. I think you've been productive, but
So,
we can go with busy.
all right.
That's very good.
Yeah. So that's all for me, really.
Um, Normally I would say I haven't done anything, but that's not true. I've actually
No.
done all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I've been rebasing, on some our first time basing, uh, this huge, two actually huge, 10 millimeter armies for American War of Independence. So
Yeah.
I'm not happy with the basing at all. People who are members of our fan group on Facebook will have seen my displeasure at that, and I probably will change them at some point. Uh, but they were fine to have on the table.
Oh yeah.
Important thing is to get them done. Doesn't matter that I don't like them and I think they're awful, but whatever. They're on the table. So that's a good thing.
That's the
And
important thing.
it is an important thing, especially for me, just gonna keep it going. And I realized when I bought the army, which it's fully painted, thankfully, otherwise I wouldn't have bought it. But there's no cavalry really. and no artillery. But thankfully, ages ago, I bought tons more than I should have ever bought of Old Glory 10 mil stuff.
Mm,
So I sent off some things to get assembled and painted, and they should be coming back by August ish, I think,
cool.
which is really nice. So then we can try out artillery from second edition and cavalry and see how all that works. So I'm looking forward to that. And
Works the same.
then, yeah, I think because I mean, when we played, we covered all the bases other than artillery and cavalry, but the cavalry didn't really matter terribly. But the artillery would be nice to see how that plays out with stuff.
Yeah,
But
I mean the mechanics for artillery are the same. We ours was a straight up infantry fight, and I mean cavalry and Rev Wars, meh anyway. So
yeah, and just it'd be nice to have to and to try it out.
oh yeah,
And I picked up and assembled and painted by Iron Hammer Studio. Uh, it's beautiful 28 millimeter Russian house from the Things from the Basement Russian Village.
ah
And we don't do a whole lot of Russian stuff, and I have no Russian, so it kind of seems like a stupid thing for me to buy. But at the same point, I don't have a whole lot of 28 mil World War II terrain. And when we play things like bolt action or whatever, it could be really useful to have to plop it on the table. And it just is so gorgeous. They did such a great job, and I couldn't say no to it.
yeah
So like that came, and that was gorgeous. And I mean, not something I assembled or painted or anything, but just really, really good. And I've been working on tons of Things from the Basement stuff. Uh,
yeah
I love
yeah
their scatter terrain. I think that's their true strong point. So like what did I do? I sealed the last of my first 50-ish of Czech hedgehogs. So those are all painted, assembled, and sealed. I started assembling the last 50 that I need to do. So I'll have all 100 hedgehogs ready for some gaming. And then just other things. Police barricades have been primed and they're assembled, and cable spools. I don't know what I'll use them for, but they're pretty neat. And then Breach Storm. I've been working on that actually a lot,
yeah
getting those figures done. And if things go well with the contrast paints for the feline people, I'm going to redo the humans with
oh,
red and so forth. So
okay
we'll see how that is.
yeah
But I think each night I've been doing something, which is unusual.
yeah I have been of late too actually. So slow but steady.
And then we played Gaslands too, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was a lot of fun. That's a very enjoyable game. If you're not familiar with the post-apocalyptic kind of thing, similar to Steve Jackson's Car Wars, if you've ever played that. I played that a lot when I was a kid. I loved it.
Yeah, from what I've heard, Gaslands is Car Wars, but more accessible and put out by Osprey, basically.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sure that's being unfair to both games, but just kind of in a nutshell, like the elevator pitch.
Well, yeah. Car Wars was fairly in the physics and stuff. I don't want to say detail, but there was more to it than there is Gaslands. But Gaslands is fast and a lot of fun. I really enjoy that game.
Yeah, and play with Matchbox cars, which is pretty cool. And
Yeah,
uh,
you
you
can
don't
go
need a
all in.
lot.
You don't really. Literally, all you need is the cars. You don't have to have a track or anything, and you can use anything you want for a track. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It plays fast. It's I don't know. It's just really enjoyable. Kind of. This is not a serious game, quote unquote, kind of thing. If you're, you know, playing. I hate to say if you're playing to win, you're playing it wrong, but you know what I mean.
Well, to me, it seems like a really good beer and pretzel kind of game. If you're of legal age to have beer and or pretzels.
I don't know if there is a specific age for pretzels. I mean, probably wouldn't want to give them to like a little baby because they'd probably choke.
Some places, though, are enacting legislation regarding junk food, as it's called.
Well, that's why we're heading towards another revolutionary war.
So I don't want to get too political, but I like to cover my bases.
So, but yeah, no, it is. It's a very casual game.
Yeah, I would like to play it again. And
Yeah,
that's not what I was expecting.
yeah, no, it's casual. I don't think the rules are expensive. None of those Osprey rules are expensive.
No, and I bet you could probably even pick it up on Amazon, actually, if you don't want to go direct to Osprey or if your local game store doesn't have it.
Yeah, probably. John, yeah, he actually did get it at the local game store. I think. Yeah, he did. I know he did.
Almost $15.50 on Amazon, or $10 for the ebook.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Oh, there's another book coming out for Gaslands. Oh, it's a well, that's interesting. It's called Refueled. It looks like it's going to be, I don't know if it's an X pack, a second edition, or what it is.
hmm.
Comes out September 2019, though.
Oh, all right.
Cool. Well, I think we've been very busy and very productive lately,
We have been, and we've been very chatty tonight, longer than usual, I think.
and we have more great stuff coming up in future episodes. We got the people from Little Wars are going to be coming on.
Yeah, I'm
We
excited about that.
we're going to be doing the brand new Cube of Death with Peter Bryant, who's a game designer, and Mike Kafis from the Mythwits. So we'll be doing a neat thing with that on a future episode. And then we also are going to be talking about a brand new gaming convention here in Massachusetts coming out that's being run by the Dark Phoenix Games people.
Yeah.
So that'll be pretty cool. And we got other stuff happening later on this year. But I think we're hitting all the bases for what we wanted to do. Just kind of checking everything off and covering the games and more cool game stuff coming up and more videos and all that kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So if people want to keep up to date with what you're doing, what's the best way to do that?
The Facebook groups, either the podcast fan club or the main page on Facebook. I am on Twitter, abenson229. Yeah, Twitter, whatever.
Cool. And of course, we're on all the things as Wargaming Recon. So be sure to find us there and follow us or whatever the case may be. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell your friends, all the things that online creators tell you to do. Just
Yes.
presume that we've told you to do those because it's true for us too. But
Yeah.
listen, really, that's the most important thing. Listen and
Yeah.
let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear on future episodes of the show. Well, Adrian, thank you very much for being on the episode.
Yeah, no problem.
I had a blast with Black Powder and all the other things that we've done. So that was good.
Yeah, Black Powder was a good time. We actually haven't had the opportunity to play it, and it's been a long time, actually, which is odd considering how much we like it. But yeah, it
Too
was good.
long.
It was good to get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank everyone else for taking the time to listen to this episode of Wargaming Recon. I want to remind you that no matter how busy you are, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter whether or not you're thinking about picking up a second edition Black Powder, pick it up. Be sure that you know that you have to, you gotta, you need to keep on gaming.
I was